morning, good afternoon, good evening. How's it going, everybody? This is JD Moonin coming at you guys with another episode of the Redneck Philosopher. Brought to you from right here in my studio / bedroom. Yes, I have my Hugh Hefner robe on. I do like this robe. I wear it everywhere, honestly. It's very comfortable. And it's fuzzy and stuff. I like it. So anyways, today what we're going to talk about on the show today is, how do I say this? Recently I got a phone call. Well, I got a text message from an old significant other of mine, from a long time ago. She was a little, I guess you could say, beside herself because, she told me that she was still in love with me, and she never really gotten over our relationship and all this and that, and but she's married now. She has kids and a good husband and things like that, and I'm not the kind of person that breaks that kind of stuff up. So I told her, I basically told her that, there's nothing more that's going to happen here but a friendship. And, I informed her, of course, that I'd always love her and things like that. But, our time is done. I mean, it's like, I'm still in love with somebody that, that I was with for the last almost 5 years. I'm still in love with her. And it's just, me even thinking about getting in a relationship right now, it just wouldn't do me justice, and it wouldn't do anybody else, whoever I got with, justice either. But before we go and jump into that, I just kind of want to give you guys like what I'm talking about in this podcast and why I'm talking about it. So we're going to talk about relationships, some things that have to do with relationships. But primarily it's going to be more about how the way you act in relationships, or the way that you treat someone, and this is going with children, friendships, this is all relationship, not just romantic ones, and the effects that it has on people, because this has been a topic of mine that I really hold dear to my heart, because of how many times I've been with somebody and their parents don't like me, and there's no real valid reason for it, other than I might have said something that they didn't like or whatever. But they never didn't like me because of my character. They never didn't like me because of how I treated their daughter. It was always probably some superficial, like, I didn't come from money, or, I said something a little brass, and it rubbed them the wrong way, or they felt like I disrespected them in some way, or whatever. Anyways, but so before we dive into this, I want to go ahead and remind you, if you haven't done it already, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button for me, or you can hit the thumbs down button. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. Either way, just hit one of those buttons, please. Basically, I got to get the watch hours back up, guys. And so that's what we're working on right now. So that way we can get monetization going again, and I can really, really focus on this, and not have to focus on a part-time job while I do this again. But like I said, don't forget, hit that like. If you haven't subscribed already, you like the content you hear coming from me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to put the all bell on. Otherwise you won't get notified when I drop some content. So anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive back into, our episode today of the Redneck Philosopher. So this is a very touchy subject for me. I'll give you guys a little bit of back information. So, when I was young, I didn't date, a whole lot. I had girlfriends or whatever, but I mean, I just wasn't interested in it. I just didn't care about relationships. I just didn't really appeal to me. I was more, neither was sex, didn't either. I mean, I didn't have sex for the first time until I was 17. And there's probably reasons for that. I kind of had some screwed up stuff happen to me in my life. I was sexually assaulted, if you will, by a 40-year-old man when I was young. And I really held that in. I held that to myself. I didn't tell anybody until I was in my 30s, which I mean, to everybody's surprise, they were like, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me?" I mean, I grew up in the era where, if a guy says something about that, we thought we were going to be made fun of or be looked at lesser as a man or whatever. I mean, I'm part of that era, and so that's when I grew up. But I mean, now after I said something about it, even my stepdad was like, he's like, I didn't know that, um, it's just, and I had a long string of just bad luck with relationships, which is it's really weird. Because my lucky number in numerology is 6, which, pertains to, luck and family, but I will say this, I do have a wonderful family. But my luck in love so far has just not been very good. Let's go ahead and start from the beginning. My first experience with love, I gotten with a girl when I was in high school, and we dated for almost 2 years, and I was holding myself. I was holding my virginity, basically. And it was of my own reasoning. I mean, it wasn't like I didn't have offers to have sex when I was in high school. I mean, I did. I had a lot of them. I was very popular. I was very well known, and I was a cool kid that was like a loner cool kid. It was weird. I mean, I was just kind of like fit in with every group. But anyways, I had been with this girl, and but her parents just really hated me, and I think really them trying to drive a wedge between her and I ended up driving us to lose our virginity to each other, right? And the irony in the whole thing is that if they wouldn't have been there trying to control everything, trying to, essentially, let her know, hey, this dude's bad for you, blah blah blah, he's not good for you, and when actually, like, at the time, her and I were great together. I still to this day do not have a bad memory with her. And what they did ended up affecting her and I until we were adults. I mean, even now. So, this is where I'm leading in with this, and you'll see why. So after we had lost our virginity to each other, her parents went and they tried to file statutory rape against me. I was 17 years old, and she was 15. So, but because we were within a 2.5 year range, and I wasn't even over the age of 18 yet, but because we were within that 2.5 year range, which falls underneath what's called the Juliet clause, the Romeo and Juliet clause in Texas law, the charges never went anywhere. But the fact, being young and having parents go and essentially try and go to law enforcement and say that you raped their daughter. Okay. I mean, that is so harmful to the psyche of a child. Okay. I mean, at 17, I was definitely a child, and I mean, that really affected me, for the rest of my life. I mean, it made me very weary of relationships. And I already had like a hard time trying to find a good mate anyways, mainly because I had went through abuse as a child. I was physically abused. Now, I don't hold that against my parents. I'm a very understanding person and forgiving person. And I know that, my parents at the time that I was under the physical abuse that I went through and the mental stuff, verbal abuse and stuff that I went through, my stepdad's parents were dying. My biological father wasn't a part of my younger life much at all. As a matter of fact, like him and I were very much estranged up until recently. So all I had was my stepdad. Now he really didn't like my father. So that was already a recipe for disaster. Seeing as how, genetics really makes the apple not fall far from the tree. And so that being said, I mean, I ended up being more like that man than I could have imagined. And I didn't realize this until I was 34 years old. But so the amount of damage that was done to me, me thinking like, oh my God, wow. Like I had a sexual interest in a young lady, and I was young, and we did something because they were, basically because they were tearing us apart. And so we just I guess you could say, like, we wanted to remember each other for the rest of our lives, I guess. And that destruction that was brought, really affected me. It made me like automatically think that, equate my sexual attraction or desire for somebody, as bad right out of the gate. I mean, I'd already grown up in the church. Okay. So that already comes with its own long line of issues that come from Christianity. There's a good moral compass that comes with Christianity, but there's a dogma that's also imbued in you when you're raised in the church. My parents were very much. I come from a very structured and controlled environment. I ran away when I was 15, and I moved out when I was 16, and I didn't actually come back to my parents' house. I came back one time when I was 19, and that was to clean up off of drugs or whatever, to kind of like fix my life up. And then I left and got married. I was gone like 3 months later, and I went and I got married. And then I was out on my own, and so most of like. What I'm getting at here is I want to talk about how trying to control somebody, especially at a young age. And I want to talk about, how parents, controlling the relationships of their children, even up until adulthood. I've seen this in adulthood. I had one girlfriend that her mom absolutely loved me. And that was my second long-term relationship, basically. Well, I say long-term, my second long-term relationship when I was an adult. Because all I've had is long-term. I don't do short relationships. And when I was younger, like after my ex-wife, I did the whole sleeping around thing. I don't do that anymore either. Like I hold myself and I stay like celibate until somebody comes along, because, whether people want to admit it or not, every time you sleep with somebody, not only do you give a piece of yourself to that person, but if you sleep with them more than just once or twice, you're gonna catch feelings. You're gonna have feelings for somebody, and it's confusing. Especially if you're in the dating world and you're sleeping with multiple people, like that shit's confusing, dude. And it's just I just. The amount of, I'm very spiritual, and so I believe that your sacral energy is the strongest energy you have, and the only way to access that is through sexual intercourse, right? So I just believe in safeguarding my sacral energy, because that's the energy that you use to manifest things into your life, and if you're giving that out to people willy-nilly, then and you look at your life and you're seeing you're not really going anywhere, well, that's why. You need to hang on to that energy. You need to use it for good and for yourself, or, whatever. If you have a dream, stop having sex and focus on that dream. Things like that. Anyways, so the effects of the control that my girlfriend's parents had on her, even to this day, when I talk to her, she still has so many problems with her mother, and and she never got over me. There's this like sense of regret because of our relationship was ripped apart, not by our decision, not by anything that happened between us. It was because of our parents, and that wasn't the first time my parents had ripped a relationship of mine apart. I remember I was dating, sorry, I just realized I just dropped a thing with bleach in it over. I could smell it. I was like, what the heck? Anyways, so one of my best friends when I was young, his sister and I got together. I was, believe it was like right after my first long term girlfriend. I was 17 and she was like 14 or something like that. Well, my parents got real nervous about that, even though like with this situation, like her and I were like really good friends. We'd known each other for years, and she's just really mature for her age because of like everything that happened in their family. They had a lot going on. Their dad was ill, and it just anyways, they didn't really have a childhood. They grew up very quickly, kind of like I did, and and so my parents ended up ripping that apart because of what had happened with my first girlfriend before that. Like and that ended up like really kind of destroying a relationship that I had, because she really liked me, and and I was and I liked her. I mean, it was cool. And see, like I had always dreamed of meeting my having my high school sweetheart and then getting married out of high school. And I know with my first girlfriend, like that was definitely on the table. That was something that could have happened, but because it was cut short by her family, I never got to experience that, and that's what she always wanted too. And so I really feel like we ended up getting, gypped, right? Because other people thought they had a better idea of what was good for us and what wasn't, and the whole point of me saying this is that even as children, we cannot choose who we love. I mean, we fall in love with who we fall in love with, and not a single person out there is able to decide who that's going to be. People say, "Oh, I can get, I learned to love my husband." No, you didn't. You became content, and now that is, security. But you didn't fall in love with that person, and so the feelings of being in love and like this being your person, I feel like there's a lot of people in this world who are going without that, and here I am, I'm 35 years old, and, I experienced parents destroying my first relationship when I was in high school. My marriage was destroyed by my ex-wife's parents. I mean, my ex-wife's parents were so fucked up. Not her dad, not so much, but her mother, absolutely, and her sister. They had such a stranglehold on her, and I remember, like, I was the kind of person, I did what I had to do to make sure that my family was fed. Well, anyway, but my ex-wife ended up, getting a drug problem, and that wasn't my fault. I never put a gun to her head and told her to take drugs. No, that was her fault, and then she blamed it on me. And so, anyways, her mother hated me, and so right before we get divorced, my ex-wife, she goes to Seattle. Okay, she tells me, she goes, "Oh, I'm going up to Seattle to go visit my sister with my mom, my dad, my brother," and I was like, okay. I didn't get invited to go. Okay, they paid for the trip and everything. Well, the next thing I know, she stays up there for an additional week, and but she had been like, I've been noticing like she wasn't really talking to me much. I would kind of, I would see her text message or I call her, and I mean I wouldn't get more than like a 5-minute phone conversation, shit like that. And every time we did get on the phone, it was like she was like rushing me to get off the phone. So I got a little suspicious. Well, I ended up getting into her email, and I found out, she was up there. She was up there with some guy. And then come to find out, her mother and her sister were hooking her up with this guy, and she's a married woman. That was my second instance with basically with third parties controlling a relationship, and that really affected me. It took me nearly 8 years to get over that relationship. And it had a profound effect on every other relationship thereafter. I had developed some serious abandonment issues because of my father, my father not being around. And my mom, one time when I got in trouble, my stepdad ended up, beating the hell out of me. I mean, so bad I couldn't even sit down in class, right? I had a black and blue mark across my ass that was just stuck there, right? Like, I mean, I couldn't even sit down in class. Teacher, asked me why. Well, finally they sent me to the nurse, and I refused to tell them, but they made me drop trowel, and they saw it, and then they contacted CPS. Well, so then my stepdad gets mad at me, and and I was the one that was beat, and then you're mad at me when CPS gets called, when like I didn't even tell them. But more interestingly enough, my mom, instead of, punishing, I guess you could say, like my stepdad, right? She sends me away. So I got sent to Masonic Women's School of Texas, and that was so detrimental. I actually had a lot of resentment against my mom for that. That lasted up until almost my 20s. There was a time period where I didn't even talk to my mom. It was like almost 2 years. I wouldn't even talk to her. I came back, and at 15 I ran away. Anyways, and so, moving on a little bit further now, and so then I experienced one relationship where the mom really liked me, but the brother, ended up, I worked at HEB and stuff, and my girlfriend at the time, she was like in college to become a nurse, and so anyway, she was getting ready to move to Corpus, and she ends up hooking up with some guy that her brother introduced her to down there, and he was 30, and so she left me for him, which was pretty devastating. My ex-wife, I did actually meet. I met this girl. I didn't meet her. Actually, she'd been around. She was already a kind of a family friend, and she would have been a great, wife for me if I would have actually stayed with her. But as soon as my ex-wife found out that I was actually dating somebody, she comes around, starts doing the mind games, and ends up breaking us up. Because I did the whole back and forth thing. That was the last time I ever did that. But then, here I am now. I spent nearly 7 years in solitude, but, basically just alone, single. Spent almost 5 years celibate. Not because I have a problem with meeting women. I don't, actually. I'm kind of a chick magnet. I'm not bad looking. I've got a lot of skills. I've got a lot of, I can DJ. I mean, that right there brings women by itself. And I'm funny. And I'm outgoing, and I'm confident, and so that's all very attractive. And when I want to look good and clean up, when I look good, okay, I can look real good. So I mean, I know that about myself, and so I really just don't have a problem with meeting women. And but finally, I stayed alone for all that time because I wanted to get an idea of, what love was. I wanted to understand love, because I always felt like when I loved somebody, it always came with condition. And I thought maybe this was one of my problems with relationships. And it's not just romantic relationships. It was friendships, all that. I didn't believe that I could actually love unconditionally. And quite frankly, I didn't believe that unconditional love really actually existed. Up until, I realized my mom loved me unconditionally. I mean, the amount of things that she has done for me, I would never be able to pay her back, ever. And she asked for nothing in return but me to succeed in life, and just make her proud. And this last girlfriend of mine, I actually just decided that I would love that person, I would trust them. And I loved her unconditionally, I still do. And here we go again. She's got her own mental stuff that she's dealing with, and the first 2 years was tough, especially the second year was tough with her and I, because like Accenture did all this stuff. She worked for Accenture too, and the jobs, losing the jobs, like really caused some upheaval in our relationship. Especially, so she lost her job, and then, I kept mine. I was still working for a while, but I was getting discriminated against and harassed at work and targeted and retaliated against. I mean, it got really bad, for me. And, so I ended up going into a pretty deep depression, especially my grandmother dying and all that, but the most detrimental thing that happened was my ex's mom, Brenda. She tried to say that if Amanda came back to me, she would disown her and she would take her daughter from her. That absolutely blows my mind. And the sad thing is that when you have somebody who's naive to things like that with children, I'm not naive to it because, I watched my parents go through a full-on CPS fight to get my brother's kids, okay? My parents have raised 3 adopted children. One they're still raising right now, my little brother Michael. He was adopted. His mother was a drug addict, and my parents got custody of the child. And I'm going to be very, very honest with you. The damage that gets done to the people involved in any relationship when people step in and try and control like that is absolutely horrid. Because what you're doing is you're ripping somebody apart. You're making them have to choose between their family and the person they love. Now, see, with me, I cut that apron string a long time ago, right? I've seen the damage that control does, and as long as you allow yourself to be controlled, you're allowing damage to be done to yourself, and that's just straight up, and it's more and more people do it, just like I told, my ex that called me up telling me, she never got over me and all that, I told her, I said, I really wish, that we could be friends. I did try and be friends with her, but that's all she was going to get. There was not going to be any romantic anything. I'm not doing third parties. She's married. I don't rip marriages apart. I believe that's a sacred union, and I respect marriage. And I just told her, I said, but I'll be there, and I'll be supportive. I'd love to meet your husband, if you ever wanted to introduce me. Our time together is past, but you'll always have a friend. And then, unfortunately, she decided that she can't be my friend. It's too hard for her. And that's understandable, but I pray for her, and I wish that she gets the healing that she needs. And she's able to let go of that past hurt. And I think a lot of that will happen once she confronts her mother. Like I told her, she has to. You have to. The only way to get this stuff to stop is you have to confront the person that did it, that is doing it. You have to let them know that you're the adult. You're in control of your life, of your destiny, of your child. Not your parent. And I know how difficult that can be. But quite frankly, it was like, for me, it was no shade, man. It was easy because I've just always been very independent. I'm a rebel. I've always been a free thinker, and I'll be damned if somebody's going to control me, and so, naturally you can see where where I butt heads with my family, when I was growing up. But I'm trying to teach other people how to do that. You just have to stand up and you have to tell them that. If they want to throw threats and all that, this and that and this, that, it's like, all right, well then that's on you. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you're independent, like I'm a very independent person, I don't need anybody to survive. I don't need anybody to make my place in this world. I've made my place on my own for a long time. People think that I might not have made my place on my own because I lived with my grandmother for so many years. I live with my grandmother because I have a mental condition, and me living alone can be bad sometimes. My bipolar can make me get into very deep depression. I don't take care of things. And when I get like that, I need somebody around. Okay. I don't get like that often, but when I do, it's bad. And I have a tendency to let myself go. Now, if somebody else is there, I don't. And so I learned a long time ago that I really need to live with somebody. The problem is that, I don't trust people very much. I've been screwed over by a lot of people. I've had a lot of friends that, they're still my friends, of course, but I'll never live with them again, because of things that they did, or the way they lived. And, my grandmother and I was like the only person who could put up with her bullshit. She was very controlling and abusive herself too. So naturally I was just used to that. And anyways, and so that being said, it's in order to get that sense of freedom, the sense of self, the sense of being able to be you have to cut the string. You have to tell your parent, even if you're living under their roof, you're an adult and you have the right to say no. Now there's some things you don't cross the line on. Like, for instance, you don't go create a mess and then not clean it up and keep doing that. And then when they come and ask you to clean it up, then throw a fit and all this and that. That's just disrespectful. You don't disrespect your parent in their house, but you do draw the line when you're an adult and you say, no, I'm going to come and go when I want to come and go. Okay. I don't care if you don't think that I should be out at 3 a.m. in the morning. Okay. I don't give a shit what you think about what time I'm out in the morning. Okay. I'm going to be out in the morning if I want to be out in the morning, and I'm going to stay out. I'm going to go spend the night somewhere if I want to. And it's none of your fucking business where I'm at. It doesn't matter what time I decide to come in and out. As long as I don't make a bunch of noise and wake everybody up when I come in, it doesn't fucking matter. Okay. And it's none of your business who I'm sleeping with, what me and my girlfriend are doing. None of that's none of your business. That's my business. And, I don't need to hear any threats based on that relationship. I don't need to hear any threats based on how, I dress or whatever. Okay. That's my business. What medications I take for my ailments, that's my business, not yours. I don't need your input unless I ask for it. And straight up. And if you threaten me and tell me that I can't be with my significant other or you're going to take my child from me, that's the last time you're going to talk to me. My family knows that. My mom, in the past, she has controlled who I was with. I don't allow that anymore. She knows that. My stepdad doesn't even try that with me. And my mom knows I have no problem disappearing. If you want to try and tell me that my significant other can't come with me on the holidays, well, then you're not going to see me on the holidays. If my significant other can't be a part of our family functions, then I'm not going to be a part of the family functions either. Because I'm going to go do my own family function with my family that I'm building. Okay? Because that's what happens when you get with someone else. That's your family now. And to me, you protect that from even your blood family. And so my question is at what point is it protection or is it control? At what point does it turn from a benevolent thing, which I don't ever think it is. I don't think it ever is when you force somebody to break up with somebody else. I literally think that the detriment in the problems and the hurt that's caused by that is a forever thing. It will last. It will follow them for the rest of their life. And the reason why I say that is because that's what it did to me. At least until they're adults, and unfortunately, like my ex-girlfriend, from back in high school, I mean, that's still affecting her today. And she's with someone else, she's married and has children. And to this day, she hasn't been able to get over that relationship because of the guilt that she feels that it's not even her burden to carry. She wasn't the one that went to the cops and said I raped her. No, her parents went to the police and said that tried to charge me a statutory rape, which I don't even believe that should even be a charge personally. But it didn't go anywhere. There was nothing they could do. I was protected, but it still didn't keep me from being talked to. And knowing what she had to go in and say to the cops and show them and all that stuff, knowing that she went through that really, really saddened me at the time. I mean, to that kind of trauma, to force your child to go in and tell somebody they've never met, it's very personal things. And because you're trying to throw her boyfriend in jail, like imagine what that does to the psyche of the girl. And then you got my recent ex, I mean, she was more concerned with what her family and her friends thought about our relationship than what I thought or how I felt, and it's really sad that, because of control, because of people talking shit about your significant other or whatever, it really does damage that person's psyche. And, I'm starting to realize now that kind of thing causes regret for the person who ends up losing the significant other, losing that partner. I'm one of those people that I believe everything happens for a reason, and two people don't get together for no reason. They love each other in most cases, especially when you're talking about like the first girlfriend in high school and stuff like that. Like that is a love that is deep. And when it gets ripped from you, especially like it was ripped from me, I mean, the pain that you go through is unbearable. And it created some very serious abandonment issues for me later on in life, which was it was very noticeable in my last relationship. I mean, really, when I look at any of my relationships, the breakup has always been the hardest. Even if I walk away, I end up, it's hard for me to completely walk away because I've always been afraid of losing those in my life. By the time I was 13 years old, I went through so much death, in my life. It's just, I've known almost nothing but loss my entire life. And dealing with those abandonment issues this time around, it was hard. I remember when I broke the trauma bond between Amanda and I, and just the emotional pain I went through, and I mean, I snapped. I really, really I had a mental fucking breakdown, and I ended up, my personality split in two. It's like I had a split personality, and I mean, it was crazy. Getting over these things is very hard, and so I understand why a lot of people don't do it, or they go from one lover to the next, trying to avoid that pain because it does hurt, and healing is the hard part. That's the real test of faith, and that's the real job, the real work. And it requires you to go inside. And, a lot of people, they don't do that because when you heal, you have to look at yourself and you have to see the good and the bad. You have to see the dirt, and you still have to love yourself because of that. And it's okay if there's dirt there. There's nothing wrong with that. We're all human. We all make mistakes. That's why, I don't hold anything against my parents. They did the best with me that they could with what they had. And so I don't hold it against them, what I went through as a child. Now when it comes to parents, like Kate's parents, for instance, I do hold it against them. You're literally so pretentious and so stuck up Okay. But you claim to be these Christians that, oh, blah, blah. No Christian person who actually claims to be a Christian, who actually really follows the doctrine of Christianity, none of them are going to go try and ruin a child's life because that person and your daughter had lost their virginity to each other. That's absolutely insane. And not to mention the fact that you're grown adults and these two are teenagers and you still don't have the couth to self-reflect on the fact that your controlling nature was what caused that to happen in the first place. Me and her, I can guarantee you right now, if they would have just left it alone, we would have saved ourselves for marriage. Probably would have gotten married, had children, had family, and I mean, it was that way. We were together for 2 years in high school. Okay. Almost 2 years. I mean, that's a long time in high school, and we were dedicated to each other, but we were forced apart. And to just think about that, the irony, and when I'm sitting here talking to her the other day, and she literally says, I said to her, I was like, it was because of your parents doing that we ended up doing that anyways. And she goes, absolutely. I mean, it's when you're ripping two people apart like that. I mean, of course, eventually they're gonna do what you got to do, I guess. I mean, we wanted to remember each other. I mean, it's when you're at that time and you have something like that going on. I mean, you're looking at it going, oh my God, I'm never gonna be with this person again. Of course, now that I'm the age I am now, I mean, if that was, if that was happening now, I'd be like, I gotta go, or, when you're ready, just come move in, or whatever, I mean, but I mean, that's now though, I'm an adult, and it's sad to me because when you treat people that way, much like the person who gets often it's often, not every time, but often, the person who gets molested or raped as a child, their emotional maturity stays at that level. And they don't actually mature emotionally or in love in that manner. Broken families produce broken people. I mean, Amanda, what was so hard for me was she had the belief that relationships weren't permanent, that people weren't permanently in your life. And every person was fleeting and was just going to come and go. And that's really sad. That's really sad because I grew up completely different. I grew up with the understanding that relationships aren't fleeting and that every person who cares about you, you hang on to them, and you make a point to stay with those kinds of people because people who truly love you and truly care about you, they're very few and far between. It's very rare that you'll meet them. I can still to this day, I used to be friends with everybody, right? Acquaintances. As soon as I fell off the scene or, when I decided to quit doing drugs or when I took a break from DJing, when I quit drinking alcohol, the amount of people that stayed around me who were willing to help me that actually cared about me as a person unconditionally, I can count on one hand how many friends I still have in my life that I can count on, that I can actually count on. Not going to help me once or twice here and there, but somebody I can call up when I'm having a hard time and just talk to them, get some advice. If I need money in a pinch, they're going to help me out. If I'm broke down on the side of the road somewhere, they're going to drop what they're doing to come and get me, or to come and help me. Make sure I get to wherever I need to go. People who will actually do that, they're very few and far between. And oftentimes the most important thing that people can do to be there for you is give them your time. Give you their time. And because time is our most valuable commodity. There's nothing more valuable in this world, because all of us have a finite amount of time in this life. You know, I mean, we're all eternal beings, and, you know, all of us are immortal. You know, we go from vessel to vessel every life. You know, there's nothing else that makes sense to me, and that's my belief system. Anyways, but that being said, the life that you're living now, you only have the amount of time that you have in that vessel is the only amount of time you're going to live that life. You're never going to be that person that you are today ever again. You know, that person, that ego, or that manifestation of your consciousness at that time is unique, and it's unique to that time and that lifespan. And the effect that you have on people is profound. Every person has an effect on every person. We all leave our mark on this world, whether we realize it or not. Even down to the most insignificant person to anybody. That person still has to live their life, has to affect the people that come in it and out of it, because it all has meaning. But there's not a single person alive that's replaceable. And I just want it to be understood that if you, like my ex, the woman I still am in love with, right? The one that I'm still here, you know, waiting for her to contact me so that way we can talk about everything. You know, though every person is unique. You're never going to meet another person like that again. You are the reason why relationships are not permanent in your life. I want that to be clear. There is, of course, there's life and death, right? There's death. Everybody has to go through death. And all of the people who, you know, are supposed to die before us will. And yes, they will leave your life in that aspect. But the energy, the consciousness that is them never leaves you, right? I even understand it so much as to know that, you know, I mean, keep in mind, guys, you know, I read tarot and yeah, I speak to God often. I meditate and all that stuff, and stuff like that, you know. And I've had some psychic abilities for a very long time. I've had visions since I was young. It's just something I never really spoke much about until a few years ago. But you know, having the outer body experiences that I've had and things like that, the spirit is real, the consciousness is real. And interestingly enough, there's two different consciousnesses in our body, right? So with that being understood, I've come to realize that the body is, in my opinion, it's biological AI. It's just a vessel. It's a car, you know, that we manifest into when we come here to learn or help try and move the human race in a better direction. Especially right now, you know, like I mean, you know, I definitely feel like I'm here to try and help move humanity into a more loving and caring and kind existence, because it's gotten very dark and selfish and greedy. You know, I just found that it's just so important for us to have more people who will get up in front of a crowd and, you know, tell people that their shit stinks, that, you know, that they're narcissistic, that social media is killing this world. It's changing people. People aren't acting like they're human anymore. You know, it's sad when you have to hear a rap song that tells people, you know, that where's all the love gone? You know, I mean, like when I listen to Soul Food by Big Crit, you know, I mean, it's like, you know, He's talking about like what happened to that, like people used to hang out outside and, and the whole family used to get together and have dinner together and have, lunch and stuff on the weekends, and my family used to do that too. And we don't do that anymore. And why? It's like every time I turn around, people are trying to get one over on each other. Indiscriminately just fucking each other over. For what? For a buck? That's people who falsely think that money is wealth. Money is not wealth, man. Wealth is wealth in spirit. If you have wealth in spirit, you'll have wealth in everything. That's where wealth comes from. Wealth comes from in here, in your connection to the Most High. Until you learn how to manifest, you're going to be stuck working that 9 to 5. You're never going to be, independent. You might be able to go open up your own business. You might want to run one truck. But if you want to make a difference in this world, you have to connect with your higher self. You have to get on the phone with the Most High. And people just don't understand even what God is. God is consciousness. That's what it is to be made in His image, right? That's what the Bible talks about. It's completely misunderstood. God wasn't a man. So that's our image of ourselves is not what they're talking about when they say that we were made in God's image. That's your consciousness, your ability to be a magician, create the future and the relationships and the jobs or whatever that you want in your life, and you have the ability to do that. And it's just so sad to me when I see people being controlled constantly left and right. And what they don't realize is every time you go and you ask somebody else for advice, right? Which I used to have to do that. I used to do that all the time. I used to think that I needed to get the advice of other people so that way I could, figure out what I was going to do. I don't need anybody's advice. Why? Because every time I've taken advice and I've done something that somebody else has done, unless it's something like a subject or a philosophy or something like that, it's never, if I take an action that somebody else takes, okay, without developing my own decision, I've always regretted it. Not one time have I ever been happy with the outcome. Because only I know what action I need to make to get the outcome that I want. It's the same thing goes for work. It goes with a house, with whatever. Only you know where you're going to be comfortable. Only you know what is going to, give you that thing that you need most. And then I see I feel like there's like this paradigm that gets created whenever you have, young people being controlled to the point to where, they're told what kind of boyfriend or girlfriend they can have, who can be their boyfriend or their girlfriend or whatever. Like that just sets the stage for codependency. If you're always putting your thumb on somebody and you're never letting them be their own person, you're controlling them to such an extent that you decide what they wear, how they're going to do their hair, who they can and can't date, I'd even go so far as to say what movies they can and can't watch, what games they can and can't play, if they can or can't play video games, what sports they can and can't play. All that stuff, it creates codependent people because that person basically is being shown while they're young that it's bad, who they want to be, the person they're going to become. No. My idea of who you should be is better than what you think you should be. Do you understand? Do you guys understand the issue now? Like when do you realize that controlling anybody or anything never has a good outcome? It's always going to be detrimental. You have to let things flow. You have to let things do what they're going to do. I can guarantee you that if somebody's not supposed to be with somebody, then they're going to naturally break up. And you have to let people go through that. You know, I mean, that's a learning experience for both parties. That's extremely important. You know, and you don't need to ruin that, okay, or think that you can do a better job than the universe, because you can't. The universe does a much better job than all of us could ever do, and that's collectively. You know, and we need to remember that. Like, everything that happens in our life is a lesson. This is school. You know, like we're in school right now, and I've been trying to explain that to people for a long time. You know, I really do. We're in God's school, right? Like, we're in school to be godlike, to learn how to be a god, to ascend. That's what we're here for. So that, you know, maybe one day you can go off and you can create your own universe, just like the creator of this one did. You know, life is beautiful and people are wonderful if you give them the opportunity to be. You know, I know that there's some people out there that we all get annoyed with, or they're pretentious, or, you know, we would just want to flick them off or whatever, you know? I mean, don't get me wrong. I dislike people just as much as the next person. But I understand the fragility of life, of people's psyches, and how important it is to allow somebody to grow in the ways they need to grow by the lessons that the universe is going to give them. As soon as you step in, you stunt that person's growth. You know, and it affects them for life, especially when they're young and impressionable. You know, but I mean, even to the point to now, like my ex, you know, her mother's the reason, I can tell you right now, her mom's the reason why we're not together. Imagine being told by your mom that if you go back to somebody, that they're going to take your child from you. First off, I'd look at my mom and be like, you're never going to see me again, and you're never see my child again. Just because you said that, we're done. Like, I mean, it just even the thought that somebody thinks they have the right to tell somebody that is appalling beyond any recognition. It's disgusting. And you really need to go look at yourself in the mirror and realize how much damage you've done to your daughter or your son if you ever think that that would be okay. I don't give a shit what kind of a person you think that person is. You never punish somebody for being in a relationship with somebody, ever. And it's pretty stupid to try and tell a parent, the mother, that you're going to take her daughter. Good luck, for one. I mean, she's got to give her to you for that to work. But I mean, I guess some people are that naive that they actually believe that kind of thing. Anyways, so yeah, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end it there. So here over the next few days, we're gonna have some more content coming out. I'm gonna be making a podcast about the Fauci stuff, because we definitely need to touch base on that. That's a very, very important topic, if you ask me personally. I'm also gonna, here coming up soon, we're gonna have a podcast about spirituality. About my philosophy, what I believe, how I believe. The way I think everything kind of works. I've studied a lot of theology over the years, and I've always been interested in the esoteric and also, the occult. I do believe that magic is real. I think that people can use it. And I think that it's very important for every person alive to protect themselves from it. If we have the power to manifest, then we absolutely have the power to curse. And I do believe in God. I think God is real. I think karma is the law of the universe. That's the balance. That's the thing that keeps everything in check. And that's how you know that evil won't ever get too far out of control and good will never get too far out of control. There's got to be a balance between the light and the dark. You have to have a certain level of good and a certain level of bad. There's got to be a balance in the world. Unfortunately, right now, the scales are a little tilted into the darker side. I'm hoping, maybe in the next couple of lives that'll bring itself back towards the middle. And us as a race and and as a collective humanity, as a collective species, I just hope that one day we can get our shit together. I mean, if there was going to be a comet heading to this planet, I mean, we wouldn't even be ready for it. We're so focused on like fighting amongst ourselves, that we haven't realized that every day that goes by that we're not planning for the future and working towards the future. Not just an economy, I'm talking about expanding. We're running out of room on the earth. We're eventually going to have to get off this rock. That being said, I feel like we're still in a dark age. We're still very much focused on the literal versus the non-literal. I mean, the mystical is just as important as the literal. Just because we can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I mean, we know that. Quantum physics has shown us that. That's even in the literal. Literally, it's in the literal. A lot of things that our sciences are based on, is based on things that we cannot see. But yet, we still deny God and we still deny manifestation and magic. But yet we know that things that we cannot see are all around us, and we control them, and we move them. We do things with those things, but we can't see that. We know how much different types of energy exist, but yet we fight that part of ourselves, and we go, oh, no, that's mythology. Oh, no, that's fake. Magic isn't real. No. Manifestation, no, that's not real. It is. God is real. Karma is too. What isn't real is heaven and hell, and death and birth. Those are not real. Those are just cycles. I mean, I guess one would have to ask himself, when were you? When did you manifest? Was it when the sperm hit the egg? Was it when you came out of your mother's womb? I mean, which one was it? I mean, was it when you were just a little sperm? Maybe something to think about. I mean, after having outer body experiences in my life, I've come to realize that it's quite possible that the energy that pushed your parents to even sleep together in the first place, that could have been you. You could have drove them to do that. You could have pushed them. You could have been that part of the universe that pushed them there because you were ready to manifest into the world. And so you did. Something to think about. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Anybody who's new to my podcast, welcome, by the way. Also, I'm an open format. We talk about all kinds of different things. Here pretty soon, we're gonna have guests coming on. I'm in the works with a couple of different people. We're gonna start getting it set up to where I'll be able to sit here and have a conversation with other people, and we're gonna bring a good show bring a good show for you guys. So I'm really excited about the things to come. I hope you guys are too. It feels great to be back. And for everybody out there who supported me all this time, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the support, and let's make a difference. Let's make some change. Let's really do something and leave a mark here on this world. Let's try and let's show everybody what's going on. Let's I don't know. Let's get everybody loving each other. You know what I mean? Like, let's being nice to one another. Caring about each other. That's what I would like to see. I would say if I can get just 10 people to do that who didn't do that before, who weren't very loving and kind, and I can just get those people to do that before I die, then I've done my job. Anyways, thanks for watching. I will see you guys on the next video. Have a good one.